What if the earliest humans survived not only because of strength or chance, but because something unseen moved beside them in the shadows of a world filled with gigantic threats? What if an invisible force, a quiet guardian woven into instinct, protected them long before language or belief took shape? This question becomes impossible to ignore when we step back into a landscape where towering predators ruled the horizon and fragile human bodies had almost no chance of survival. Yet somehow, they endured, and not just endured, they learned. They sensed. They adapted. They carried within themselves a mysterious awareness that modern science still struggles to explain. Imagine a primitive human standing at the edge of a dark forest. His tools are crude, his knowledge small, yet something inside him whispers to step back. This whisper has no words and no logic, and yet it saves him. Moments like this are scattered throughout prehistory, small miracles that shaped the entire story of human evolution. They reveal a form of ancient spirituality that did not depend on rituals or symbols, but on a raw connection with the world, a connection so intimate that it felt as if the earth itself was guiding them. When we explore these origins, we are not just studying bones or artifacts. We are uncovering messages left in the fabric of human behavior instincts that acted almost like warnings sent from a force beyond understanding. How did primitive humans know when danger was near? Why did whole groups migrate at the exact moment a region became hostile? Why did they choose certain caves for shelter before storms or predators approached? Patterns like these suggest a deeper communication, a silent dialogue between early humans and the world around them. These ancestral messages remain inside us today, hidden beneath layers of noise, technology, and comfort. And as we continue this journey, you may start recognizing traces of them in your own life. Moments when something guided you without explanation. Moments when you felt protected or warned without knowing why. These echoes from the past open a door to a mystery far older than civilization itself. If any part of this resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments and let me know if you have ever felt a moment of unexplained intuition. Also, remember to like this video and check if you are already subscribed, because understanding these ancient messages becomes even more powerful when we explore them together as a community. And now we move forward into the deeper layers of this ancestral mystery, where the invisible becomes even harder to ignore. That quiet echo from the past continues to grow as we move deeper into the world of primitive humans, where every breath carried meaning and every movement of the wind felt like a message. Once you look closely, it becomes clear that early humans were not simply reacting to their environment. They were listening to it, reading it, absorbing patterns that went far beyond conscious understanding. Their survival depended on this subtle awareness, and it shaped their minds long before the first symbols were carved into stone. In those vast landscapes filled with predators larger than anything we know today, hesitation meant death, but stillness often meant revelation. When the forest suddenly fell silent, they did not question it. They felt the shift inside their bones. When birds changed direction, they sensed danger without needing to see it. This ability was not magic in the way we imagine it, but a depth of perception that bordered on the spiritual, a connection that allowed them to anticipate threats that no logic could explain. Some researchers believe that this heightened perception came from constant exposure to risk, while others propose that early humans developed a form of collective memory, a shared intuition passed through generations. But there is something even more intriguing. The idea that these instincts might have been responses to patterns too complex for conscious thought, patterns that felt like whispers from an unseen guide. Whether it was a shift in temperature, the tension in the air, or the subtle movement of distant animals, primitive humans detected meaning in details we now overlook. Their brains were shaped in a world where survival required more than observation. It required interpretation. They learned to treat the environment not as a backdrop, but as a living presence communicating with them through signs too delicate for modern senses to capture. As we imagine these early humans moving across open plains or navigating dense forests, we can almost feel the intensity of their awareness. Every day was a negotiation between vulnerability and insight. Every decision carried the weight of life and death. Yet somehow, through this fragile balance, they developed an ability to sense the invisible currents of their world, currents that protected them from dangers far beyond their physical strength. And if we look closely enough, fragments of that ancient guidance still linger within us, waiting to be recognized as we uncover the next layer of this ancestral mystery. Fear was not merely an emotion for primitive humans. It was a form of intelligence, a constant companion that sharpened their senses and taught them how to read the world long before words existed. In the presence of creatures so vast and powerful that a single misstep meant extinction, fear became a teacher rather than an enemy. It trained the human mind to detect patterns so subtle they almost dissolved into nothingness. A faint vibration in the ground, a shift in the scent of the air, the sudden disappearance of small animals nearby, all these signs were absorbed instantly, instinctively, woven into a silent map inside their minds. Fear shaped perception until it became something greater than survival. It became awareness. It transformed the unknown into a source of meaning, guiding early humans toward choices that seemed almost prophetic in their accuracy. Yet this fear was not chaotic. It moved with a strange rhythm, stabilizing rather than overwhelming. Primitive humans learned to stand within its presence without collapsing under it, to recognize that fear carried messages hidden beneath its surface. It warned them of danger, yes, but it also revealed opportunities, pushing them toward water sources, safer shelters, or routes where predators rarely roamed. Instead of paralyzing them, fear heightened their connection to the environment. It expanded their sensitivity to life around them, turning raw sensation into something like intuition. Over time, this intuition deepened until it felt as though something outside themselves was guiding their steps, something unseen yet undeniably present. In moments of extreme vulnerability, this ancestral fear often crystallized into clarity. A hunter alone on a plain might suddenly sense when to freeze, when to crouch, when to run, even if no visible threat had appeared yet. Groups migrating across rugged terrain could feel the right moment to change direction without exchanging a single word. This collective instinct created a shared understanding that bound them together and strengthened their ability to face the colossal forces of their world. And as we continue unraveling the story of their survival, we begin to see how this ancient wisdom rooted in fear evolved into something deeper, something that would eventually leave marks carved into stone, waiting for future generations to interpret. As fear matured into intuition, and intuition slowly shaped a deeper awareness, something remarkable began to appear across the ancient world. Long before written language, primitive humans started marking stones, cave walls, and pieces of bone with symbols that carried meaning far beyond their simplicity. These were not decorations or idle scratches. They were attempts to translate the invisible guidance they felt into a form that could outlast their own lives. Each line, curve, or figure hinted at experiences too profound to express verbally. These markings acted like anchors for the unseen knowledge that had kept them alive, preserving not just events but emotions, fears, and moments of revelation. And as they repeated these symbols across generations, a shared spiritual memory began to take shape. It is striking to imagine a small group gathered around a cave wall as a hunter slowly carved an image of a giant beast or a winding path. To us, these appear as rudimentary drawings, but to them they were maps of meaning. The shape of an animal could represent not only its physical form, but the sensation of encountering it, the rhythm of its movement, the intuition needed to avoid its territory. A spiral might represent a cycle of seasons, a shift in the land, or a spiritual journey undertaken within the mind. These symbols were messages encoded through experience, mirrors reflecting a world where survival was inseparable from awareness. Over time, these carvings became repositories of collective wisdom, teaching those who came after how to listen to the same invisible forces. What makes these markings even more extraordinary is that they reveal a moment in human evolution when inner perception became external expression. It was as if the early human mind was learning to capture the invisible, to give form to something felt rather than seen. These carvings were more than instructions. They were traces of a spiritual dialogue, unfolding in real time. A child growing up near such markings would inherit not only the stories carried by elders, but the emotional weight embedded in the stones themselves. The world around them was no longer just a landscape, but a living network of messages, warnings, and insights passed down through symbols that transcended language. And even now, as we look at these ancient marks through modern eyes, something stirs in us. We recognize that they are not random. They reflect the same mysterious awareness that still flickers within us when we sense danger, feel guided, or experience sudden clarity without knowing why. These early symbols remind us that humans have always searched for ways to understand the invisible and to communicate what cannot be spoken. And that search continues as we move into the next layer of this ancestral journey. If these ancient markings speak to you in any way, share in the comments what they make you think or feel, and let your perspective become part of this ongoing exploration. As those ancient symbols settled into stone, something equally powerful was unfolding within the human mind. Primitive humans began to rely less on raw strength and more on an almost instinctive insight that surfaced in crucial moments. In a world where predators outweighed them, outran them, and often seemed to outthink them, survival depended on recognizing the invisible cues that signaled danger or opportunity. It was not the strongest who endured, but the ones who sensed the world with a depth that bordered on the spiritual. This intuition was not dramatic or loud. It emerged in small, decisive moments that shaped entire destinies. A hunter stepping away from a clearing without knowing why, a mother choosing a different route to water, a group pausing before crossing an open plain. Their instincts acted faster than thought, guiding them through landscapes filled with threats far larger than themselves. This intuitive sensitivity grew sharper with each generation. Exposure to constant danger trained the nervous system to pick up faint patterns long before conscious awareness. The rustle of grass, the direction of fleeing birds, the thickness of silence, even shifts in air pressure could trigger an inner response that felt like a warning rising from somewhere deeper than fear. Modern humans might call it instinct or subconscious processing, but for early humans it felt like communication, as though the world whispered instructions directly into their bones. This internal guidance became more reliable than any tool they crafted. A spear could fail, but a sense that urged them to wait, to move, or to turn back often proved life-saving. Intuition also shaped how humans interacted with each other. Groups who trusted these subtle signals moved more effectively across dangerous terrain. Decisions emerged not from debate, but from shared perception, an alignment of awareness that created unity in the face of uncertainty. The ability to feel these unseen cues allowed them to anticipate storms, track migrating herds, and avoid ambushes from predators or rival groups. Intuition became a silent bond that held communities together, strengthening their resilience and allowing them to survive challenges that pure physical power could never overcome. What is most striking is how familiar this ancient guidance feels when we recognize it in ourselves. Even now, there are moments when something inside us speaks without words, a sudden hesitation, an unexplained certainty, a quiet pull toward or away from something. These modern echoes of prehistoric intuition remind us that the minds of early humans were not primitive, but profoundly attuned to their world. Their strength came not from dominance, but from sensitivity, an ability to read the invisible currents of life with astonishing clarity. And as we follow their footsteps further, we begin to see how this inner awareness expanded beyond survival, shaping beliefs, rituals, and the sense that an unseen presence moved with them through the wild. As intuition deepened into something that felt almost alive within them, early humans began to perceive the natural world as more than a physical environment. The forest was not just a gathering of trees, but a place where warnings traveled through silence and wind. The fire was not only warmth and light, but a companion whose flicker seemed to respond to their emotions. The sky, with its vast unpredictability, became a shifting canvas of signs that guided migrations, hunts, and shelter. Everywhere they looked, there seemed to be an unseen presence moving between the visible layers of life, shaping events in ways too precise to be dismissed as coincidence. This presence did not speak in words or visions, but in sensations that rose within them like echoes from something older than thought. Walking through dense forests, primitive humans often paused without knowing why. A sudden tension in the air, the odd stillness of insects, the strange feeling that a predator watched from beyond the leaves, these sensations were not taken lightly. They were treated as messages, indicators that the world communicated with them through subtle pulses of awareness. In such moments, they felt surrounded by an invisible network of forces that reacted to their movements and anticipated their dangers. Whether these forces were the result of pattern recognition, instinct, or something spiritual did not matter to them. What mattered was that the forest seemed alive in a way that demanded respect and attention. Around the fire, these perceptions grew even stronger. As flames cracked and shadows danced across cave walls, the boundary between inner experience and outer reality became thinner. Stories emerged not as entertainment, but as interpretations of the unseen. The crackling of wood was heard as agreement, warning, or approval from an invisible presence accompanying them. Fire was sacred, not because of ritual alone, but because its behavior seemed to reflect their emotional states. When fear lingered, flames hissed sharply. When calm returned, they softened. In those moments, early humans felt watched over, as if the world itself remained awake while they slept. The sky reinforced this sense of connection. Storms forming at the horizon were more than weather. They were signs of shifts in the balance of life. The movement of stars, the arrival of migrating birds, the rare glow of celestial events, these patterns hinted at a greater system guiding all living things. Primitive humans read these signs intuitively, sensing when danger was approaching or when resources would return. The alignment between their inner awareness and the external world created a profound relationship with nature, allowing them to feel protected even in the presence of overwhelming threats. And through this interplay of intuition and environment, they developed an understanding that survival was not a solitary effort. Something unseen moved with them, reacted to them, and shaped the rhythm of their days. This sense of companionship with the invisible became the seed of ancient beliefs and rituals, which would soon take form as humans sought ways to honor and communicate with the forces they felt guiding their lives. As the invisible presence became more familiar to early humans, they began shaping rituals that mirrored the silent forces guiding their survival. These rituals were not created out of superstition or fear, but out of an intimate awareness that life depended on maintaining harmony with a world that was always watching. Every hunt, every journey, every crossing into unknown territory carried a weight that went beyond physical preparation. Before stepping into danger, primitive humans paused to align their minds with something deeper, as though clearing space for the unseen guidance they relied upon. These rituals became moments of grounding, where the noise of instinct and fear settled long enough for clarity to rise. Some rituals were simple gestures, a hand pressed to the earth, a breath released toward the sky, a stone placed at the entrance of a cave. Others involved coordinated movements among the group, synchronized steps or whispered sounds that heightened their collective awareness. Through repetition, these acts became bridges between the visible world and the inner terrain where intuition lived. They served as reminders that survival required more than tools. It required connection. When a hunter traced patterns in the dirt before pursuing a massive beast, he was not seeking luck. He was tuning himself to the rhythms of the land, allowing his senses to open fully so he could detect the faint messages that often marked the difference between life and death. Rituals also strengthened the unity of the group. Before a difficult hunt or migration, the entire community would gather to synchronize their emotions and intentions. In such moments, individuals stopped acting as separate beings and became part of a single organism guided by shared awareness. They believed that when their minds aligned, the invisible forces around them responded in kind, offering protection or insight. Whether or not this was objectively true matters less than the impact it had on their behavior. Unified and attuned, they moved through landscapes of colossal predators with a confidence that bordered on the miraculous. Over generations, these rituals evolved into early forms of spirituality. They reflected the understanding that humans were not alone in their struggle, that the natural world and the unseen world were intertwined. Firelit ceremonies, rhythmic chants, painted bodies, each element carried symbolic weight, reinforcing the belief that intention could shape reality. These rituals encoded survival strategies into emotional and spiritual experiences, making them unforgettable and instinctively repeatable. And long after the threats that inspired them faded, the essence of these practices remained embedded in the human psyche, resurfacing in modern moments when intuition feels stronger than logic. If any of these ancient rituals resonate with you or remind you of something you have experienced, share your thoughts in the comments and let your insight become part of this exploration. As rituals grew into a fundamental part of early human life, a deeper transformation began unfolding within the mind itself. These practices were not only spiritual expressions, they were psychological tools that shaped awareness, sharpened perception, and strengthened resilience in an unpredictable world. Primitive humans lived in constant negotiations with fear, hunger, weather, and colossal predators, and their beliefs emerged as internal strategies to process uncertainty. Every symbol, gesture, and chant acted as a stabilizing framework that allowed them to interpret events that would otherwise overwhelm the human psyche. Instead of facing chaos without structure, they created meaning, and meaning became their shield. This psychological anchoring was essential for navigating landscapes where logic alone could not guarantee survival. When a hunter believed that a spirit guided him through the forest, that belief heightened his attention to every movement and sound, allowing intuition to operate more effectively. When a community interpreted storms or celestial shifts as messages, it encouraged collective response, aligning their behavior with environmental rhythms that science now recognizes as crucial for survival. Their beliefs were not primitive mistakes. They were adaptations, mental frameworks that transformed raw fear into coherent understanding. By giving form to the invisible forces they sensed, early humans created a mental map that helped them navigate both the external world and their own emotional landscape. These beliefs also played a crucial role in social cohesion. Shared interpretations of the unseen world built trust within groups, allowing individuals to rely on one another's instincts. A signal perceived by one person could influence the behavior of the entire community, creating a kind of distributed intelligence. This collective awareness enhanced their ability to detect dangers and opportunities, making the group far more effective than any solitary individual. Their spiritual systems, therefore, functioned as early forms of psychological synchronization, aligning minds through shared meaning and reinforcing unity in the face of overwhelming threats. Over time, the internal landscape of early humans became inseparable from their external environment. Their beliefs shaped what they noticed, how they reacted, and how they remembered. They came to see patterns where modern eyes perceive randomness, but those patterns, real or not, helped them predict danger and respond quickly. The stories they whispered around the fire were not simply tales. They were cognitive templates, teaching new generations how to think, how to interpret, how to feel the world. And as this mental structure deepened, it laid the groundwork for something even more profound: the emergence of symbolic thought, myth, and the beginnings of culture itself, a shift that would forever alter the path of humanity as we continue to follow its unfolding through the next layers of this ancient journey. As symbolic thought expanded and early beliefs shaped the inner world of our ancestors, another layer of communication emerged, one that required no words, no rituals, no carvings on stone. It existed in silence, in the subtle exchange between humans and their environment, and it may be the most ancient language ever spoken. Primitive humans moved through a world where silence was never empty. It carried warnings, guidance, and meanings that modern minds often fail to perceive. To them, the absence of birdsong signaled more than quiet. It meant a predator was near. The sudden stillness of wind was not simply weather, but a cue to pause and observe. Even the natural rhythm of their own heartbeat could signal whether danger lurked nearby or whether a path was safe to follow. This silent language formed a bond between inner awareness and external reality, allowing early humans to read the world with extraordinary precision. Unlike modern humans, who rely heavily on verbal explanation, primitive humans trusted sensations that rose without logic. These sensations were not dismissed as imagination, but respected as part of their connection to life. Silence was a teacher that sharpened instincts and shaped decisions, revealing patterns hidden beneath the noise of everyday struggle. Through this deep listening, early humans learned to navigate landscapes where survival depended on a sensitivity far more subtle than strength or strategy. They did not force meaning onto the world. They received it. Silence taught them to wait, to watch, to interpret the faintest shifts in their surroundings. It became a space where intuition could grow unchallenged, turning their bodies into instruments finely tuned to the unseen rhythms of nature. This silent awareness also shaped their relationships with one another. Within groups, communication often happened without speech. A shared glance, a change in posture, a coordinated halt during a hunt, these cues emerged from collective intuition, a synchronized response to signals that none of them consciously identified. This ability to act as a unified organism gave early humans a profound advantage over larger predators. Their strength came from coordination, born not from orders or plans, but from a deep sensitivity to each other's movements. Silence became a medium through which trust and understanding flowed, strengthening the bonds that held communities together. Over generations, this connection to silence became woven into their identity. It shaped how they perceived themselves and the forces around them, reinforcing the belief that life communicated through more than sound and sight. Silence revealed the sacred in the ordinary, the meaningful in the minute, and the protective in the invisible. And as we follow this thread into the next part of our journey, we begin to see how this ancient language did not vanish, but continues to whisper within us, waiting to be recognized beneath the surface of our modern noise. As the silent language of our ancestors dissolved into the deeper currents of human evolution, something remarkable persisted within us. Though the world changed, though the threats shifted from towering beasts to the complexities of modern life, the core of that ancient awareness never disappeared. It lives beneath our thoughts, beneath our routines, waiting for moments when logic falters and instinct rises to the surface. There are times when we hesitate without reason, sense tension in a room before words are spoken, or feel an inexplicable pull toward a certain choice. These sensations are not accidents. They are echoes of the same intuitive intelligence that protected early humans from forces far larger and more dangerous than themselves. Their world may have faded, but the internal compass they relied upon still guides us through moments we barely understand. This legacy becomes clearer when we pay attention to the subtle shifts within our own perception. A quiet uneasiness before making a decision, the strange certainty that something is wrong even when everything appears normal, the sudden clarity that arrives without explanation, all mirror the ancient signals that once kept our ancestors alive. The environments we inhabit are different, yet the mind we carry is still shaped by a history of reading danger in silence, opportunity in patterns, and meaning in the invisible. Modern distractions may drown out these sensations, but they never erase them. The deeper we look, the more we recognize how much of our behavior is influenced by forces that operate beneath awareness, just as they did thousands of generations ago. This hidden inheritance also shapes how we connect with others. Just as early humans moved as unified groups guided by shared intuition, we too recognize subtle cues in the people around us. A shift in tone, a glance that reveals emotion before words do, an instinctive trust or distrust formed in seconds. These responses emerge from the same ancient circuitry that once synchronized entire communities. The unseen forces that, protected primitive humans have transformed into the quiet instincts that help us navigate relationships, choices, and the uncertain paths of our lives. And when we begin to acknowledge this inner voice instead of ignoring it, we reopen a channel that has existed since the dawn of humanity. What remains is an invitation to notice what has always been there, to sense the world not only with the mind, but with the ancestral awareness carried in the body, to recognize that the invisible forces guiding early humans did not vanish. They simply changed shape, becoming part of the deep intelligence that moves through all of us. As you reflect on this journey, if you felt something awaken or remembered moments where intuition spoke louder than reason, consider subscribing to stay connected with content that explores these hidden layers of our history. Leave a comment saying, "This message was for me, so I know you reached this point of the story." And if the ideas here stirred something in you, a quiet recognition or a spark of curiosity, give the video a like to support this exploration. There is another video waiting for you that expands these themes in a different direction, so follow the path and continue this journey with me.